Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I saw the movie Warfare, and now I want to tell you about it. Warfare is an action thriller about a group of American soldiers trying to hold their position during an attack. The film was co-written and co-directed by Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland. It stars Defero Wunotai, Will Poulter, and Cosmo Jarvis, alongside an ensemble cast. Okay, so this movie is so simple you can explain it in a single paragraph. These American soldiers are holed up in a house in Iraq trying to hold the area while another unit completes a raid. They're attacked by jihadis, and the film is about how the attack went from the Americans' perspectives. It's an event movie that focuses more on telling the story of that day, rather than focusing on any one soldier's personal journey. We see them arrive in the location, set up their position, and then watch as they're attacked with a few rockets, some grenades, and a lot of small arms fire. For positives, it has a solid and exciting story. The cast is doing a great job, and the production value on the visual journey was fantastic. Starting with the story. It's based on a real story. They took the experiences and memories from a group of soldiers and compiled it into a film about the event. It's one of those tales that drops you in the middle of things without telling you anything. They expect you to pick up the pieces of what's going on by listening to the conversations, watching the action, and putting two and two together. Certain details are a little harder to catch because of their delivery method, but for the most part the story is told in a clear manner. The one area that's a little troublesome is the radio transmissions. They come in randomly, are a little hard to hear, and throw coded information at you with a lightning-fast speed. For excitement, you have the rising tension of the situation. Things start off quietly with them infiltrating a house in the middle of the night and escalate to a full-blown standoff between the soldiers and the jihadis. There's explosions, there's gunfire, lots of military technology on display, and big dramatic twists to keep things interesting. Most of the excitement comes from the action at the expense of character development, but there's enough of it to make up the difference. For the cast, this movie is about showing how this situation affected the soldiers. They start off calm and confident, and by the end of the film most of them are so shaken that you can hardly believe they're the same person. The cast doesn't get to do a lot of monologuing or overt emotional work, but put on a masterclass display of subtle trauma and how it affects people differently. Visually, the film uses one location and infrared aerial views to tell the tale. The characters roll up to the house in full military costume with solid props. The location they visit is a recreation of an Iraqi home based on the location from the real story. The action involves the actors standing around firing their guns from cover and reacting to explosions around them. The film never shows any of the violence directly, but rather focuses on the damage caused by it. For big visual moments, they have several explosions, a couple of low flybys from the jets, and a few graphic injuries. Most of them are concentrated around two scenes in the middle of the film. Sound-wise, the film doesn't use music aside from one scene at the very beginning. They play a song while the soldiers are in base, and all of the characters react to it and get excited before going on their mission. From that point forward, all of the sound is dedicated toward making the situation sound realistic. They did a good job of accentuating the situation through the sound of gunfire, allowed passive storytelling through the radio transmissions, and managed to create incredible moments by manipulating the sound after major explosions to replicate the character's disorientation. It sounds like a battlefield, and the sound of gunfire ends up working like a tension-building instrumental. It raises the stakes of the situation without drowning out the dialogue or diluting the scene with emotional tones. On the negative side of things, the cast isn't really given a chance to develop their characters, and the soundtrack isn't memorable in any way, with a few repetitive themes that wear thin pretty quickly. For the cast, it's about how much they split the screen time. There are at least 8 characters of importance in this film, and they each get about 4 or 5 minutes of screen time where they're actually doing something other than reacting or waiting. They don't get a chance to develop personalities or build relationships. They're just dealing with the noise. It makes them a bit forgettable, and the story feels disconnected because of it. There were good performances and great actors who could have done a lot with this, but they weren't given the time they needed. They also shafted several of the cast members by cutting their time extremely short. There are 2 members of the main unit who are barely mentioned or shown on screen who both play a pivotal role in events. They ended up getting less time than even a few of the second squad members who only arrive in the last 20 minutes of the film. Sound-wise, the film is very quiet. It focuses heavily on the sounds of the conflict, but has a lot of downtime, especially early on. There were quite a few moments throughout the film where it felt a little empty, and like they could have used some music as a way to release tension. While I liked the use of ambient noise to create the setting, after a while it became clear that the sound was disconnected from the visuals. You don't see gunshots landing around the characters, you hear them. It makes it sound like the conflict is farther away than it is. Personally, I thought this film was interesting for the perspective it provided and how they chose to tell the story. I don't think it's the most interesting story, but there was a decent amount of excitement. The cast did a great job with what they were given, but it wasn't the most in-depth work they could have done. The visual journey was great and provided quite a few disturbing visuals, but the soundtrack could have done a little more. Overall, I found Warfare to be a decent film that doesn't really stand out for its quality, but does enough right that it can be quite enjoyable to watch. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye bye.